All right. Welcome to the May 20th Conservation Commission meeting, 6:30 p.m. And we are only 3 minutes late, 6:33. Location: due to the current COVID-19 crisis, the town hall is closed, and therefore this meeting will be held via Zoom teleconference. Persons may attend and participate in the hearing by using the online Zoom application at www.zoom.us/join using meeting ID 842-1222-1240. The password is 396055, or by phone at 1-505-886-2610 using the PIN 978-330-316. Comments may also be submitted in accordance with instructions on the town's website at www.suttonmass.org on the Conservation Commission's page. Now, on to my next spiel. This is a statement regarding the remotely conducted open meeting. Good evening. This open meeting of the Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely via Zoom teleconference consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. While still ensuring public access, this order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. You can find the order posted on the town's website. Regardless of our inability to meet in person, it is our intent to ensure continued transparency and the ability of the public to at least view the actions of the commission. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. Tonight's public meeting will feature public comment, as all public hearings will be conducted in accordance with the legislation passed on April 3rd, 2020. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. Accordingly, be aware that others may be able to see you and that you take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All right. So the first thing on our agenda is going to be at 6:30, which is the public hearing for 14 Lincoln Road, and this is a new home construction. And Bill, I was going to ask you to waive the public hearing.
Bill Wentz making a motion to waive the public hearing of 14 Lincoln Road.
Okay. Mike, could you make the second on that?
I'll second that.
You mean to waive the public hearing or the reading of the notice?
The reading of the notice of 14 Lincoln Road. My apologies.
I'll second it. Mike McGovern.
Bill makes the motion. Mike seconds it. Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joyce, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mike, how do you vote?
Mike McGovern. Aye.
Zach, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Nicole, how do you vote?
I'm a non-voting member tonight as I'm associate.
Very good. That passes 5-0. All right, so this is one of the filings we had. This goes back to February before all this stuff started. This is our first public Zoom meeting. So you're gonna have to bear with us, and we'll do our absolute best with this. So I'm gonna call on Norman. If everybody else could please be muted. I'm gonna ask Norman to please explain the project and what Brandon had picked some stuff out, the final product, and then we'll go back to Brandon for commentary.
Norman, should I be showing the sheet one of the revised plan right now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Good job, Nicole.
Thanks, Nicole. It's so good to see you all. I hope everyone is well. I've worked with this plan now for several months. We've made quite a few changes, but the two things I'd like to point out, first, the driveway going through the wetlands. We now have riprap, both left and right side, on both sides of that proposed driveway. That was one thing that you had recommended, and we've made that change. And then the other change we've made is the replication area. As you look at the plan, the big plan, it's the pink area to the left of the green area. That's a replication area. We used to have two small ones. Now we have just this one large one. And we're proposing to replicate 25% more area than we're filling. So we're proposing to fill 2,435 square feet, but now we're proposing to replicate 3,075 square feet. So I believe those are the big changes that we've made since you last saw this plan. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, Brandon, we'll take your comments now. We'll do back and forth comments with you and the engineer prior to going to the board.
Okay. This is a parcel of land that up until recently was part of map 19 lot 4, associated with the historic house at the corner of Central Pike and Lincoln Road, which was formerly 101 Central Turnpike. It's now called 4 Lincoln Road. It was a 32-acre parcel of land that was subdivided to 4 lots: 4 Lincoln Road, 10 Lincoln Road, 14 Lincoln Road, which is a subject parcel, and an unnamed retreat lot that Norman has stated in previous public hearings that is unbuildable.
Correct.
So 14 Lincoln Road, this one, is located in the southeast corner of the original lot 4 and is generally at the lowest elevation of all the subdivided lots. The only potential buildable area of land on this parcel is located on an upland island surrounded by wetland, which is what you're seeing before you on the screen. The upland has about 74,000 square feet of contiguous upland area with no means of upland ingress or egress, which means that access through the wetland must be made in order to access it. And the access is proposed from Lincoln Road. Just so we get it out there, the original lot 4 went through a forest product harvest in 2018 under an approved forest cutting plan. We have a number of different wetland resource areas present on site. There's the bordering vegetated wetland, which was verified through an order of resource area delineation on March 5th of this year. The BVW has an associated 100-foot buffer zone associated with it, and it's also regulated under the Sutton Wetlands Protection Act. Then we have a riverfront area associated with a perennial stream on site. The inner boundary of the riverfront area was verified under the ORAD. The BVW and the riverfront area are the 2 wetland resources that are known to be immediately impacted as a result of the proposed project. The inner boundary of the riverfront area is also considered the limit of annual flooding or the mean annual high water mark of the stream. Then there's the bank of the stream, which isn't going to be impacted through what's being proposed. And then finally, we have bordering land subject to flooding. It's associated with that perennial stream. And it's the BLSF, bordering land subject to flooding, is what's known as the 100-year floodplain. And we're in what's called Zone A, which means that there's no base flood elevation given. Therefore, at this time, it's unknown exactly what elevation that the flooding extends up to. We do know that the applicant has kept work 100 feet away from the stream from the mean annual high water line. And I know that Norman has sent in a letter regarding that, and I think we'll come back around to that so Norman can explain himself. In several places, I will note that work is proposed within 5 feet of the 100-foot mark from the mean annual high water. All right, so the wetland fill is about 2,300 square feet. They're proposing a 4-bedroom, single-family house with an attached 2-car garage and a 250 square foot deck. The house will utilize a septic system and a well. There's a modest recreational lawn proposed around the house, with the largest usable area of lawn occurring over the septic system leach field. The entire area with the house, septic system, and lawn will be raised by 4 feet above current elevations. So in order to access the house, the driveway is coming down from Lincoln Road. The driveway is going to cross 2,400 square feet of BVW. The slope leading down to the house begins at 6% slope, reduces to 5% slope near the middle section of the driveway, finally reduces to 1% slope as it reaches the parking area. The pitch of the driveway is proposed at 2% to the east. The driveway is going to be raised as much as 8 feet above the existing grade above the wetland near the road, and reducing to 4 feet above the existing grade near the house. Like Norman said, the slope on either side of the crossing will be covered with riprap. And then there's a single box culvert proposed under the driveway in the wetland to allow for wildlife movement and to allow hydraulic gradient and movement of water so that we don't have any kind of backup on the uphill side. Okay, so that's that. So in order to meet the standards of the Wetlands Protection Act, an applicant, when they fill in wetland, they have to replace it at a ratio of 1:1. And they're proposing to replicate 3,075 square feet of BVW in order to mitigate the 2,300 square feet. So that's a 1.3:1 ratio, which means that they meet the standard as far as the amount that needs to be replicated. So in order to infiltrate the runoff coming off the driveway, especially the more steeply pitched section, they proposed a riprap swale with a sediment forebay next to the BVW on the northeast side of the house. There's a stone check dam at the end of the forebay, after which it's going to enter what he calls a temporary basin for driveway construction. Tell me if I'm wrong, Norman, but it sounds like it's going to be something similar to a rain garden.
Yes.
Okay. And there's a riprap spillway at the end of the temporary basin, which leads to and is very close to the BVW. The septic system and the well are at least 100 feet apart. The septic system is at least 100 feet away from the BVW and is within the outer riparian zone of the perennial stream. So that means it's between 100 feet and 200 feet away from the stream itself. All the work has been proposed outside of the 100-foot inner riparian zone of the perennial stream, which is an absolute must because under the Wetlands Protection Act, that first 100 feet from the mean annual high water of the stream is a no-touch zone. And the applicant has proposed Cultec infiltration systems for roof water, which is the commission's policy, not necessarily Cultec, but infiltration. All right, here's my analysis. One of the things we have to do when reviewing a wetland crossing is to make sure that the applicant has not created their own hardship. And I think that the applicant has proven that there's no other means of ingress or egress from the buildable area on site. The original Lot 4 was subdivided via the Form A process, which is a by right subdivision process, meaning that the applicant meets the minimum frontage and lot size and other things like contiguous upland areas specified in the zoning regs. So that's all done and was done legally. So as part of the process, the applicant has an obligation not to create their own hardship. And I think that thus far, it's reasonable to think that in the case of this parcel, the applicant has not created their own hardship for site access because the subdivision as a whole couldn't have been done in a different way to allow for unfettered upland access, to an upland island. That said, there's already 2 other parcels, 4 and 10 Lincoln Road, that have been recently approved for house lots. And they have access in buildable areas completely within upland areas. Okay. I believe that the current proposal meets the minimum performance standards for work under 310 CMR 10 with the following exceptions, which I suggest that the commission eventually discuss. So number 1, we still don't know what the base flood elevation of the stream is. Without that number, and knowing that in several places that the work's proposed just on the other side of the 100-foot mark from the mean annual high water of the river, the commission's discretion becomes critical as to whether or not the performance standards for bordering land subject to flooding, or if adverse impacts to the public interest will occur. 2, with certain exceptions, the commission is empowered to allow up to 5,000 square feet of fill of BBW as long as it's replicated at a ratio of 1:1. There are no exceptions that would deny the commission to allow up to 5,000 square feet of fill and BBW, but I will point out for the commission that this is not a by right alteration for the applicant. So the regulations say that the commission may allow up to 5,000 square feet of fill in a wetland. The key word is may. Okay, so if any commission member is concerned about the design or the significance of the work in general as it relates to the potential for adverse impact to the public interests as a result of said fill, I recommend that you discuss that tonight. All right, so now on to number 3, which is impacts to the riverfront area. The general performance standard for work under the riverfront area states that, and I'm going to read it directly from the regs because I think it's important, and there's a few places where I'm going to read because the riverfront area regs can get kind of complicated. The applicant shall prove by preponderance of evidence that there are no practicable and substantially equivalent economic alternatives to the proposed project with less adverse effects on the interest identified in MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, that's the Wetlands Protection Act, and that the work, including proposed mitigation, will have no significant adverse impact on the riverfront area to protect the interests identified in MGL Chapter 131, Section 40. Further, the regulations state that there must be no practicable and substantially equivalent economic alternatives to the proposed projects with less adverse impacts on the interests identified in the Wetlands Protection Act. So we have this word practicable. And the definition of the word practicable means that an alternative is practicable and substantially equivalent economically if it's available and capable of being done after taking into consideration costs, existing technology, proposed use, and logistics, in light of the overall project purposes. Available and capable of being done means alternative is obtainable and feasible. Project purposes shall be defined generally, for example, single-family homes, residential subdivisions, expansion of a commercial development. The alternatives analysis may reduce the scale of the activity or the number of lots available for development, consistent with the project purpose and proposed use. the regulations further define what the scope of the alternatives an applicant is required to entertain. And is related to the area under construction for practicable alternatives is limited to the lot for activities with the construction of a or expansion of a single-family house on a lot recorded on or before August 1st, 1996. So this is a lot that was recorded, created and recorded after August 1, 1996. So that particular regulation doesn't apply. So if it was a lot that was created before August 1st, 1996, the alternatives would be limited to that particular lot, such as, can we shift the house to a different spot on this lot? The current situation, however, where the lot was created after August 1st, 1996, the area under consideration for practical alternatives is limited to the lot, the subdivided lots, and any adjacent lots formerly or presently owned by the same owner. So that means that given that it was recently subdivided and it was all in common ownership until recently, the commission can say, well, maybe you should have built on that lot over there and left this lot alone. So it's clear that under that rule, that this lot was created after August 1st, 1996. So when determining if an applicant has met all the practical and substantially economic alternatives to the work, the commission may take into consideration whether or not the already approved lots at 4 Lincoln Road and 10 Lincoln Road should come into play. That is, if those lots should already be considered the alternative to building on the current lot. If the commission believes that the applicant has met the burden of proof for the above, which I just stated, it may move on to the next performance standard, which states that, and I'm going to paraphrase to highlight the applicable provisions. Within 200-foot riverfront areas, the issuing authority may allow the alteration of up to 10% of the riverfront area within the lot recorded after October 6, 1997, provided that the 100-foot wide area of undisturbed vegetation is provided. And you are doing that. And Norman, remind me, how close to that 10% mark are you with the total alteration?
We're less than 10%.
Okay.
I forget the number. It's I don't want to state the wrong percentage. I know it was less. I want to say it was the wrong number.
Actually, I have it right here. So the latest numbers that I have from you is that there's a total of 117,492 square feet of riverfront area on the parcel, which means that 11,749 square feet is 10% of the total amount. That sound right?
It does sound right, yeah.
Okay. So you're proposing 10,872 square feet of permanent disturbance. But it is also 13,334 square feet of temporary disturbance, which is the replication area and the temporary basin for construction. So you've got, between the temporary disturbance and the permanent disturbance, we have a total of 24,206 square feet.
That's correct.
Okay, so the important thing when assessing total disturbance towards the 10% mark, it doesn't discern between permanent and temporary impacts, other than to state that temporary impacts where necessary for the installation of linear site-related utilities are allowed. So we're not doing installation of linear site-related utilities. So it appears to me that this project is only crediting the permanent disturbance towards that 10% calculation. So one question I have has to do with the temporary basin for construction. Norman, when it's complete, is it going to revert to a natural state, or is it going to be maintained as part of a stormwater treatment train?
We're going to let it grow in with natural vegetation, but it's going to remain a depression and act as a stormwater facility.
Right. So, commissioners, two important things. First thing is that when looking at this under the riverfront provisions, you can take the other lots into consideration as an alternatives to whether or not they should build on this lot. And the second thing is if you're happy that, or you're satisfied that they don't need to, the other lots aren't the better alternative to building on this lot, I have questions about the total amount of disturbance, because they're keeping their permanent disturbance under that 10%, but the temporary disturbance brings it up much higher than 10%. And my reading of the regulations states that temporary disturbance is part of that calculation too. Even with a temporary disturbance, you have to keep it under the total of 10%. All right, so that's the Wetlands Protection Act. And then there's a Sutton Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Under the bylaw, the commission has a policy that any disturbance closer than 25 feet from a wetland resource area is a de facto significant adverse impact in most cases. And in this case, there's a crossing, but the reason why there's a crossing is because there's no other way in or out. And that the applicant has kept most of the other disturbance at least 25 feet away from the BVW, with the exception of the necessary wetland crossing. And however, I never received a number of the trees greater than 5 inches in diameter that would be a result of the unavoidable impacts. Did you ever get that number, Norman?
There's 14 trees over 4 inches in diameter where that driveway is going in.
Okay. So the emphasis that Article 12 brings to the decision-making process is that the entire site and areas of proposed work are in a resource area, specifically the adjacent upland resource area associated with the BVW or the riverfront area. So if after Norman's presentation and discussion by the commission, a commissioner believes that the work or the activities proposed is likely to cause significant adverse impact to the public interests, you have the ability to propose conditions that would protect the public interests and allow the project to proceed, or you could simply vote in the negative to deny the project. So commissioners, you have the ability to decide if the proposed work is undesirable or unreasonable, and if the resource area's functions and values will be significantly affected based on the definitions in Article 12. And I'll state something from Article 12, which is Section 12(8), subsection A. If the commission, after a public hearing, determines that the work, activities, alterations, and/or project which are the subject of the application are likely to have an individual or cumulative impact, adverse or no, upon the functions and values of resource areas as they relate to the public interests, the commission shall, within 21 days of the close of the hearing, issue or deny a permit for the work, activities, alterations, and/or project requested. The commission shall impose conditions which it deems necessary or desirable for the protection of the public interests, and all work, activities, alterations, and/or projects shall be performed in accordance with those conditions. A permit may identify requirements that shall be enforceable for a stated number of years, indefinitely, or until permanent protection is in place, and shall apply to all current and future owners of the land. When making a determination to issue a permit or to issue a denial, the commission must take into consideration the extent to which the applicant has avoided, minimized, and mitigated individual and cumulative impacts, adverse impacts for any such work, activity, alteration, or project. The commission shall also take into account the individual or cumulative impacts to resource areas throughout the municipality as they relate to the application under consideration resulting from past activities permitted and exempt and foreseeable future activities. So remember that we have 8 public interests under the Wetlands Protection Act, which is protection of public and private water supply, protection of groundwater supply, flood control, storm damage prevention, prevention of pollution, protection of land containing shellfish, which I will state right away that that's not applicable in this case, protection of fisheries, and protection of wildlife habitat. Under Article 12, the Sutton bylaw, there are 4 more public interests, which are protection of aquatic life habitat, protection of recreational activities, which most likely isn't applicable in this case because it's private property, protection of aesthetics, and protection of agriculture, which also is not the case here because it's not agriculture. So I know that's a lot to take in. I'll go over it quickly. The commission under the bylaw has to take it all in and decide whether or not the project's going to have significant adverse impacts on the public interests. If the wetland functions and values are going to be significantly and adversely impacted. I'm concerned about the BLSF and the fact that it doesn't have a base flood elevation. You also know that the 5,000 square foot rule is not a by right alteration, and that the key word is that is may, and that the commission may allow alteration up to 5,000 square feet of BVW. And third, the issues with the riverfront area. Because it's a recently subdivided lot, the commission can take the other lots that have already been built on in the consideration of whether or not the applicant is adequately avoided and minimized, and whether or not there were alternatives available. And second, I have some big concerns about the fact that when you take the temporary impacts into account, the total disturbance in the riverfront area goes above 10%, which is the performance standard. Those are the big things. So I will end my discussion and bring it back to the Conservation Commission for discussion.
May I make?
Oh yeah, Norman, right. Sorry, the issue with the BLSF. Thanks for your patience.
Yes, I would like to comment about any concerns you may have regarding this property ever flooding. The A-type zone that's on the map, it's a big black spot on the map, but the outer boundary of that is the highest elevation that it could ever flood to. So the outer boundary of that black is at elevation 402. So that's the government believes that it would never flood higher than 402. Also, the elevation of the road where the river goes under the road, the top of the pavement is 401.4. So if it does flood as high as 402, it'll flood over the road. So 401 to 402 is the highest elevation that the government ever sees the river flooding. Now, if you look at the green area on the plan, it's surrounded by a contour of 410. That's 8 feet higher than what the government predicts the highest flood elevation would be. And then the elevation near the house of the ground is over 413, and the top of concrete is 415. So we are 13 feet higher than the highest predicted flood elevation. So I think we're plenty safe. If you were to stand down at that road and look to your right, if you were to stand on the road where the river goes under the road, look up to your right, that house is going to be up on a hill compared to where you're standing down on the road by more than 10 feet higher than where you're standing. So that's one of the first things we look at whenever we design something. We never want to build a house that could flood. We're very careful not to do that. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention regarding the pink area on this plan, those areas are all going to be allowed to grow back in with natural vegetation. And then you have to ask yourself, well, why have we put these on the plan? Well, the area to the left is for the replication. We want to provide for more wetland than what we're filling. So that's what that is. The area on the right protects the wetland by slowing down the water coming off the driveway, slows it down, leaches it into the ground, so there'll be no harm to any resource area. So everything that we've done in pink has been done to protect or provide for resource areas.
Norman, I have a question about that 40, is it 402?
Yes.
Given that Zone A doesn't have a base flood elevation, how did you, how did you come up with that number?
Yes, if you look at where that ink blot is on the contour map, you'll see that it follows contour 402. Within 300 feet or as it crosses the road, it follows contour 402. That ink blot pretty much follows right along elevation 402.
Yeah, well, I think that's incidental though, because the maps that FEMA puts out don't have elevations. They just show an aerial photograph. Used to be just a white background. So I think that blob, based on the topo that you've done, I think incidentally follows elevation 402. So I'm not crazy about that explanation.
Well, we do flood certificates for many homeowners. We probably do 2 or 3 a week. And one of the methods that we use is you look at the outside edge of that ink blot and you take that where it follows the contour, the nearest contour, and then you base your flood cert based on that. That's how we do the flood certificates for FEMA. And if you're above that, you're out of the flood zone.
So do you think that FEMA, when they created those blobs, were following a contour?
Well, they use different methods. In some methods, they actually calculate how many cubic feet per second are coming down the watershed. And in other areas, there's 7 or 8 different methods that they use. And I'm not sure which method they used on this, but I know that they err on the safe side. They adjusted these maps about 10 years ago, and a lot of people that did used to be in the floodplain are now in the floodplain. And so they always err safe now. They don't want to be paying any more insurance claims for floods.
Okay. I'll leave it at that.
Norman, do you want to add any more commentary to Brandon's other concerns, or do you want me to turn it over to the board? I'll leave that to you.
Well, the 2 concerns that stood out to me, one was the concern about, is this house going to flood? And the other was the pink area in the riverfront zone. I think we have picked the right spot for that rain garden and the right spot for the replication. You want to pick a replication area that's near the area that you're filling. On an earlier plan, we had some near the road and we had some near the house, but we've combined them into the one. And I think it'd be easier to build it, easier to maintain it, and you're going to get good growth in this area of wetland plants.
All right, Nicole, we're going to go to commentary, so you could probably switch it over. I'm going to ask the board. Bill, do you have commentary on this that you'd like to add?
Yes, I do. First, I want to thank Norman for working as hard as he probably could. This is probably one of the most challenging lots that I've seen in my tenure on conservation or proposed lots. And unfortunately, I've got to say, I've made some notes. The base flood elevation, the fact that whether it would or wouldn't flood out the proposed home, that's not my biggest concern. I stopped in front of the property on this past Saturday morning, and the water on my way to the town dump, the water was just about on Lincoln Road. Anyone who knows the area or lives in the area knows that that road, water will go over the road. So that's a huge, huge concern. The 5,000 square feet filled in, as Brandon mentioned, I think the fact that 2 lots have already been approved, one roughly where the old Trenta home, Lincoln home was, and one further down the road, is enough of a reason. And because this lot was just recently made after one, in the past few months, I think that's the 2 lots that were already approved are enough in this case. I don't want to take up too much time, but also more than 10,000 square feet of disturbance and filling in. Unfortunately, I don't think this is something I can vote in favor for.
All right. Thank you, Bill. I'm going to go to Joyce for commentary on this. Joyce?
Sorry, this is all new to me. I had to find out how to unmute it. I agree with everything that Bill said, and I have a few more issues. Norman said there were 14 trees that were coming down where the road came in, but what about where the house is and the replication areas? Would that be more? Also, there's such a big replication area, and after 15 years, the experience that I've had, the replication areas do not work very well. And people forget to complete everything that they're supposed to do in the replication area as far as the base material and everything goes. I have a concern about global warming and the fact that the rain is probably going to come in bigger bunches, like the Wisconsin one where they got 4 to 8 inches and the 2 dams let go last night. I'm just not comfortable, and I don't think I'm in favor of this project, even though Norman did a tremendous job proposing what he did. Okay.
Thank you, Joyce. I'm going to go over to Mike. Mike, can I get your commentary on this?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I've been to the site 3 times since it's come in front of the board to actually just do site visits, to really sit on the road and just take it in. As recent as yesterday. And I have a lot of concerns as well. I keep hoping to go there and see, as things has dried up. I know we've had rain, but things are starting to dry up from like the spring, winter thaw, as they call it. And it's now flourishing with a lot of different wildlife and species of plants. And I says the driveway, when I look at that plan, I really struggle with the impact of the driveway going through this wetland and even how they're going to accomplish building it. It leaves me with concerns that what would the town be left with if it doesn't go right? The river in the back. And then the final thing for me is when I look at the plan and I see a 4-bedroom home with a 2-car garage, I don't think there was really any consideration for the wetland when I see the size of the home being proposed to the board. Not that I'd probably feel too much different if it was smaller, but it's an awfully large home to top it all off. So I would say I feel the way Joyce and Bill feel, that this is a tough one, and I'm not sure I'd be in favor of the project. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Zach, how do you feel about this?
I was wondering, can Nicole bring up the image again? There's something I wanted to ask Norman about it. But I do additionally, as Mike, Bill, and Joyce have said, I have concerns about it, both in the permanent and temporary disturbance being over the 10%, as well as just generally how much it is. One question I wanted to ask Norman, is there a different spot where they could put the road still on Lincoln Road, but with less impact? Because I see it going up along the right, like in the right-hand corner. Is there a different spot that they can put it where there's less?
Well, if we moved it, say, 80 feet to the right, you might have 10 feet less of alteration, but then that puts you closer to the river. If I bring it all the way around to the left, then you have the driveway running along the edge of wetland to get out back. And so you'll have maybe 800 feet of driveway within 10 feet of the wetland, and you don't want to do that. But then you could cross into this island and only cross maybe 30 feet of wetland. Instead, right here, we're crossing probably an 80-foot wide strip. But then you'd have that driveway running along the edge of wet to get back out on that right side of the island. And so I don't think that, in a way, that would have more impact. You'd be taking down more trees, and you'd have that long driveway very close to the edge of wet. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I think this is the shortest. I really believe that this would have the least impact of those other options I just mentioned.
Thank you, Norman. And one more question. Where the lawn and the replication area meet, will there be any sort of like buffer to prevent any like pesticides or fertilizers that the homeowners would use from going into the replication area?
I think we'd be willing to have an order that says he's not allowed to use fertilizers on this site.
Okay.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate that. Nicole, any commentary on this?
Not anything more than what people have already spoke about.
Thank you, Nicole. Just a quick commentary from me. I am very impressed by your plan on this. I love that it says no salt zone. And I would love for that to be spread more in Sutton, the no salt zone. I don't think people that understand how bad salt is for the stuff we're trying to protect here. But me personally, before I turn it back over to you, I don't think that that's a great move for us to approve this for Sutton. But before I turn this back over to you, I'm just going to ask Brandon one question, and then we'll turn it over to the public. Brandon.
Yes, sir.
If they appeal this to the state, what do you think the chances are of them overturning our ruling on this?
I don't think they're going to overturn our ruling. I feel confident as long as the things we're going to do in the next 5 to 10 minutes are all, the ducks are all lined up in a row as to the rationale for the denial. And we're going to relate it to impact avoidance and minimization. We're going to relate it to not following performance standards in the 310 CMR 10, and we're going to relate it to the adverse impacts that you think it's going to have, and specifically to which of the 8 public interests. Okay, and then under the bylaw, we'll do the same thing. We'll do the same exercise.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Norman, I'm going to give you 5 minutes here for some reassuring comments, and then we're going to go to public comment. Okay.
Sure. So I understand your concern about the alteration exceeding 10% in the riverfront zone, but I believe there's a phrase in the zone that exempts stormwater management facilities. So the pink area to the right wouldn't be counted, but I don't believe the wetland replication is considered a stormwater management, but that's something you would definitely want on the plan is wetland replication. If I put the wetland replication out by the road, it's a steeper slope, and it's going to be much harder to put the wetland replication out on the road. We put it in a place where it's very flat, and you just have to dig it out a couple of feet, and it's going to be soaking wet wetland. So I believe we've got it in the right spot. This piece of land it's almost 80,000, it's almost 2 acres. That island's almost 2 acres in area. When you look at it on the plan, it's just that, but it's over 400 feet wide. and over 200 feet deep. It's a large area of an island. It's not just a postage stamp, but that's all I have to say. Yeah.
All right, Nicole, I'm going to ask you to let the public comment. I can't see it, so I'm going to have you do it.
Okay, Ms. Richards raised her hand. I believe she has something she'd like to say.
Yes, thank you. My name is Kristen Richards, and I live at 27 Lincoln Road, which is across the street from the proposal, but I'm next to an empty lot which has wetlands in it. So in other words, the river that comes across under the road, my lot is right next to the lot that drains onto. So my first concern is the flooding that you mentioned. I've lived here for 5 years, and the road has flooded at least twice that I can remember since I've been living here. The water has come right up over the road and covered the road. Another concern I have is any, kind of runoff or anything detrimental going into the river. Then it goes across, and then it affects, the lot next to me, possibly my lot, and possibly other people, in the town that are downstream. My next consideration is aesthetics. Lincoln Road is a designated scenic road. So removing trees, I know is, that's an issue with that. And I'm just concerned, about how it's all gonna look. One of the things I don't think is gonna look very good is riprap. That is for construction projects, not for home ownership. And that's another aesthetic consideration. I put an addition on my home 3 years ago, and I wanted it on this side, but that was the side of the wetland lot. And so therefore I just moved it to the other side. I didn't want it really on the other side, but I knew I had to do what, I had to do to protect the wetlands. My next consideration is once the owners take over the house, how are we going to enforce that they don't use salt, they don't use fertilizers, they don't do this, they don't do that? What about when the riprap falls down, and what about different things? So I'm concerned about that. And my final is I'd like to finish with a quote from Norman's letter. He said, "I believe the applicant has finally submitted a plan that in general minimizes impacts to the greatest degree that can be offered given the wetland related limitations this site has." So that doesn't give me a warm fuzzy when I read that. And so as an abutting neighbor, those are my concerns.
Andy, we have one more public comment that we'd like to make. 11 Lincoln Road.
Yes, thank you. So this is Richard Facette, 11 Lincoln Road. So give you an idea, I've been living here, or this has been my home of record for over 38 years. I have seen that the bottom of Lincoln Road flood at least once every 5 years in that time frame, to well over a foot over the road to where trucks are impassable. So the area does have significant wetlands that do flood on the larger storms. The wetlands do also flow down to the a pond at the end of the wetland area where there are waterfowl and beavers living. So if any impact on the wetlands or that stream would definitely impact anything downstream from that. I just think this is a place that a lot of work is being done to build a large house on an island in the middle of wetlands. If you want to take away the term wetlands and just say swamp, you're building a big house in the middle of a swamp. So I don't see Sutton benefiting from building on this lot in any way. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any other public indicating that they want to speak.
I think we're ready to go for a vote unless anybody else would like to speak on this.
There's just one other thing I'd like to say. There is one other buildable area on this property, but it's in the southeast corner. The driveway would be about 1,000 feet long, and it would have to cross wetlands and the river. That's the only other option we have here for this third house, I believe.
But again, this is Brandon. Under the riverfront provisions, because this is a recently subdivided lot, the commission can take into consideration other lots in the subdivision as alternatives to building on this one, and not just be limited to the alternatives on this lot itself. I'll also note that my reading of the riverfront provisions, Norman mentioned that he thought that wetland replication areas and stormwater basins are allowed as they do not have to, they don't count towards total impact because they're temporary. My reading of the provisions states that replication areas and stormwater basins, stormwater structures can be allowed within that inner 100 foot, the inner riparian zone that is otherwise a no touch zone. But as far as I can tell, they still count towards the total 10% of total disturbance. The only thing that I read in here that wouldn't count towards that counting towards the 10% of total disturbance is temporary impacts where necessary for installation of linear site-related utilities are allowed, provided that the area is restored to its natural condition. So unless it's a linear utility like a gas line or water line or something like that, it counts towards that 10%. So if you want to contest it, obviously that would be a point of contention, but that's my reading. And my suggestion, Mr. Chairman, is to discuss what the denial should say, whether or not you think that the project has adequately avoided or minimized impacts under the bylaw and the Wetlands Protection Act, what performance standards might not have been met, and I think that's the 10%. Whether or not, to get back to the impact avoidance and minimization and the adverse impacts, you can take the 5,000, the disturbance in the wetland for the crossing because it's not a by right, and you have to relate it to one of those 8 public interests. So if you need help, I don't know if anyone can bring that up so you can see it, or if you have those public interests in front of you, I would relate it specifically to the public interest. But I know that one that has already been brought up by Mike is wildlife habitat. So I'll leave it with you. Leave it with you there.
All right, thanks, Brandon. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, to pinpoint this all together right this second, I think would be tough, but we've had commentary prior to this moment from every board member, and I don't really want to stretch this out any longer. I think I and Bill and every other member could sit with you tomorrow and go over that, but I think we've specifically named reasons why we do or do not want this to go forward. Is that okay with you, Brandon, or is that going to make your life difficult?
It might make your life difficult, and you don't have to do it right now. So the rule is that you have to issue an order of conditions within 21 days of closing the public hearing. And what I could do is I could draft an order, which will be the denial, stating all the reasons for denial. And then at our next meeting, which I think is in less than 21 days, am I right?
Yeah, just 2 weeks.
We could quickly go over it and see if everybody agrees with it. And that way the public will also be able to hear the exact reasons for denial. I think that is the best way to go forward without having it overturned upon appeal.
I completely agree with that. So I think it's time to go for a vote. I'm going to do a quick roll call on the vote prior to the vote. So it's going to be myself as chair, Andrew DeWolf, Bill Wentz as co-chair, Joyce Smith as secretary, and Zach Peliquin and Mike McGovern as regular members.
Do you want to close the public hearing first?
Bill Wentz making a motion to close the public hearing for 14 Lincoln Road, Sutton.
I'll second the motion. Zach Peliquin.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close. Although, I can't say all those in favor. Bill, how do you vote on that?
Aye.
Joyce, how do you vote on that?
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote on that? Oh, I didn't get you, Mike. I'm sorry.
You're muted, Mike.
You gotta hit the space bar.
Aye, sorry about that.
Excellent, that's okay. Zach, how do you vote?
Aye.
All right, public hearing is closed. And I'm gonna take, Bill, what's your motion on this, Bill?
Bill Wentz making a motion to deny 14 Lincoln Road.
All right.
I'll
Well, before
second
we
it.
seconded, hold on, I thought we were gonna wait until Brandon weighed in with a written denial. We had 21 days. That's what we said.
Correct.
So we don't want to vote on this. All we wanted to do was close the public hearing. Let's wait till the next meeting. We'll have one more discussion of how we're going to word. Is my suggestion. I didn't mean to stop anybody.
No,
Through the
that's fine.
chair, can we do this after we've closed the public hearing?
Brandon, can we do this after we've closed the public hearing?
Yes, you can.
Yes, we can. All right, so we'll put it on the tail end of our next meeting. All right,
So do we
Thank you.
make a motion to continue? How do we just make reference to I just want to make sure we do continue it correct. I don't know if we're continuing or we just have the 21 days, Brandon?
You just have the 21 days and you can put it on the agenda for the June 3 meeting
Okay,
and for the final vote.
okay.
thank you, Norman.
All right, thank you all, and stay well, everybody. Stay
You
well.
Thank you,
too.
Norman.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you, Norman.
Thank you, Norman.
Good night.
All right, next up at 6:40, conservation time, which actually 7:40, is gonna be 8 Davis Circle, concrete pier slab removal repair. Chris Windle has been waiting patiently on line 3. I did issue an emergency certificate for this over the winter. Ice took out a concrete structure. There was rebar hanging out of it. Kids would have got hurt, and I'll turn it over to Chris for a minute for a quick explanation. Go ahead, Chris.
Hi, am I on?
You are on. You're live.
Okay, thank you. So Andy just said pretty much the gist of it, but we removed the damaged pier part of it. We left part of the structure. Everything was removed in a day. Everything went well. It was going to fall. The ice had shifted it in years past, and it was at the point where it was going to end up in the lake this year. So we removed the section that was damaged and left the section that was still in good shape. And that's really about it.
Excellent. Like I said, the work was completed. They filed right as the water was coming up, so we gave him an emergency certificate. And thank God we did, because there's boats in the lake now, so. Any comment from you, Brandon, on this?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any comment from Bill Wentz?
No.
Any comment from Mike McGovern?
No.
Any comment from Joyce Smith? Any comment from Zach?
No.
Any comment from Nicole?
Um,
All right, I think I have no comment either. I think we'll take a motion on this.
Bill wants making a motion to issue a negative determination for 8 Davis Road.
I'll second it.
All right, so Bill made the motion, Zach seconds. Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joyce, how do you vote?
She's muted.
You have to unmute. Okay. Mike, how do you vote?
Aye.
Andrew DeWolf, I vote aye. That's everybody, so that's 5-0.
Mike, I think you forgot me.
No, I asked you, didn't I? Zach, I'm sorry.
It's okay, but I vote to no determination.
Excellent. So that's 5-0. All set, Chris. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, Chris. You too.
You too.
Could you please close that public hearing?
Bill wants making a motion to close the public hearing for 8 Davis Road.
I'll second it.
Bill made the motion. Zach seconded. Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joyce, how do you vote?
Aye.
Zach, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I, Andrew DeWolf, vote aye. All right, next up is 6:45 p.m., which is a RDA public hearing continued for 27 Oak Drive. Project was tree removal, which I issued an emergency order for again. That was back at least a couple months ago. And the farmer's porch portion of it, I did not. So the tree work should be done. The farmer's porch will take an explanation on, and Mr. McNamara is here. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Andy, for coming by to check that out on an emergency basis. Appreciate it. Hated to cut it down, but it was really leaning over the house, and the hickory nuts would take out a kid in. You know, a 10-year-old kid, they were so big coming down from it. But basically, what we're proposing is to put front and rear. It's more like a covered patio. It's going to be level with it's going to tie into existing patio with a porch covering and columns on either the lake side and the back side. That's basically it. About 36 feet long by 5 feet, 5 or 6 feet depth. Its areas existing mulch and some shrubs and flowers.
We have
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm going to share my screen.
Thank you.
Yeah, the part with the round window is facing the lake. The part that is tying into it is already that distance out. It's tying into a patio there. It does show that part. The other side, when you're looking at it to the left, is what we call the back side towards the driveway. Just going to run from the existing bulkhead walkway to the end of the house. The lake side is about 50 feet from high water mark. There's a beach area that comes in a little closer. But in the back side, I have, you know, it's 2 lots. They combine into one lot, so there's plenty of room.
Thank you, Mr. McNamara. I appreciate that. Brandon, do you have comment on this?
Nothing other than what he's doing is already an existing lawn. Actually, it's like where he wants to put the overhang is where they have, landscaping. So I have no issue. It's pretty minor work.
Okay.
And it's an RDA, so I would recommend a negative determination.
Okay, I'm just going to call on each member, see if they have commentary. Bill Wentz, do you have any commentary on this?
Nothing.
Joyce Smith, do you have any commentary?
No,
Mike McGovern, do you have any commentary?
No.
Zach, do you have any commentary?
No, I do not.
And Nicole, do you have any commentary?
No, I don't.
And I don't as well. Is there anybody from the public that has any comments on this one?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Chairman.
I don't see any either. So I think we could go to a vote on that. Bill, I'll take a motion.
Bill Wentz making a motion to close the public hearing for 27 Oak.
I'll second it.
Bill made the motion and Zach seconds. Bill, how do you vote on that?
Aye.
Joyce, how do you vote on that?
aye.
Mike, how do you vote on that?
Aye.
Zach, how do you vote on that?
Aye.
And I, Andrew Wolf, vote aye.
Bill Wentz making a motion to issue a negative determination for 27 Oak Drive.
I'll take a
Thank you,
second on
folks.
that.
I'll second it. Zach.
Oops.
All right, Bill made the motion, Zach seconded. Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joyce, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Aye.
Zach, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Andrew Wolf votes aye. So you're all set, Mr. McNamara.
Thank you very much and have a good night.
You too.
You
stay safe.
too.
You too.
That one went a little smoother. I think we're starting to get our ducks in a row. I could see Glenn looming in the background there. All right, next up is 655, which is it's a continued notice of intent for 34 Providence Road, material storage in the buffer zone.
Bill Wentz making a motion to waive the reading of 34 Providence Road.
I'll second it.
All right, Bill made the motion, Zach second. Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joyce, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Aye.
Zach, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I, Andrew Wolf, vote aye. All right, who's here to present it?
Ron Kowalski and Mr. Amarello is also here. Will I wait for Brandon Phaneuf to make comment first, or do we want to get directly into it?
No, Glenn, could you just give us a quick rundown of
Yeah,
the
thank you.
project?
Thank you very much. This is an existing site. The work in the buffer zone is material storage, commercial. If you see the plan, I'm not sure if Mr. Phaneuf or Juan is going to put it on the screen. It's for aggregate waste, stone, sand, silo. It is a degraded area. This brook on this intermittent stream on both sides is a historic bottle dump, glass dump, concrete. It's exotic invasive in the first 25 feet. We are proposing to explore the 25-foot zone by removing the Terry and honeysuckle multiflora rose, oriental bittersweet. Leave the existing trees. There are some red maples along that zone. We're familiar with this type of work and removal. Take that dump off the surface, put a loam layer on it, restore the 25-foot zone. There's some Atlantis in there, that's another exotic. Anything exotic we're removing, we're staying, again, out of the first 25 feet with any work. This was piles of fill for some of that pre-existing work, or piles P7, P5, P3, piles. We had the surveyor ensure that they picked up all the piles of flowing exotics on top of them, along with that 25-foot zone. To make a case to the commission that this had been an altered buffer zone from the 25 going inland until you get to the concrete gravel drive, which we just touched with the 100-foot buffer zone, as you looking at the plan. So again, it's a restoration project in material storage, non-hazardous waste storage of aggregate buffer zone. I will be overseeing the restoration work. That's the project.
Thank you for your explanation, Glenn. That was superb. Brandon, do you have comments on this?
Yeah, the thing about this site is that it's already in a commercially industrial zoned area, which is the parts of town that have been made the sacrificial lamb, so to speak, for doing this kind of activity. And that the area has already been in use for a very long time, and that's evident through the fact that I noticed some, very historic fill. There's a lot of invasive plants. So the habitat that's being offered here is of low value to begin with, and with Glenn's oversight, even with what they're proposing to do by expanding their operations, it will result in a net improvement of the conditions, and the public interest will be increased. The second question I have, or the question I have, is regarding the stormwater. Did this project have to go to planning board, Glenn?
Mr. Amarillo handled any work that outside of the wetland protection, and Mr. Amarillo is or had been on the screen. Mr. Amarillo, can you answer that question?
I can hear you. We did go before the planning board.
And was the stormwater portion of it all approved?
I really can't answer that. I don't recall.
Did planning board approve it?
Yeah, the planning board approved it. The building commissioner approved it. Everybody approved it.
Then they were okay with the stormwater design. And if they're okay with the stormwater design, I'm okay with the stormwater design.
Thank you.
So that's it. I'm done.
That
Okay.
directed to anybody, me? Okay.
We're all set, Peter.
Okay.
Excellent, thank you. All right, I'm going to turn it over to the board for comment. Bill, do you have any comments on this?
No, it's a great property. I think Mr. Amarillo recently bought it from the Bean family, so I think his business is a great spot and a great asset to the location. Looks good.
Well, now I can associate the building with the address. It sometimes with you say an old name, I get it. Okay, Joyce, do you have any comments for this? You got to unmute, I'm sorry.
I have no comment.
Okay, great. Mike, do you have any comment on this?
I have no comment.
Zach, do you have any comment on this?
No comment.
All right, and I don't have any comments either. Is there anybody from the public that we're aware of?
Not to my knowledge, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, having no comments from the board or the public, I'll take a motion.
Glenn's making a motion to close the public hearing for 34 Providence Road.
Zach Peliquin seconding.
Bill made the motion, Zach second. Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joyce, how do you vote? You got to unmute, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Aye.
Zach, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well, Andrew Wolf.
Thank you so much, Conservation Commission, for your time. Stay well.
Thank you.
Seeing you in person again soon.
We didn't approve you yet. Hang on for 2 more minutes.
Don't go anywhere yet.
Don't go anywhere yet. You haven't even seen the fireworks yet. You've been
This
here
is my
for,
third hearing tonight.
You've
in
been-
3 different towns.
you've been here for 2.5 hours. Come on, the fun hasn't even started yet.
Sorry.
Is this an NOI or RDA?
NOI.
NOI.
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions for 34 Providence Road, Sutton.
I'll second it. Zach?
Bill made the motion, Zach seconds. Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joyce, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Aye.
Zach, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I, Andrew, will vote aye. So now you're off the hook. You're all set.
Now
You
I
guys
can say thank you again. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
You're
Have a
welcome.
good night.
Thank you all.
Excellent.
Seeing you.
Have a good evening.
Have a
Thank you,
good night.
guys.
Thank you very much.
All right, next up is the minutes from May 6th, which we got a little while ago. As long as there's not any opposition, they were quick minutes, we could probably go ahead and.
I have a couple of comments. I found a couple of typos, and I talked to Wanda this afternoon, and she fixed them.
Bill Wentz making a motion to approve the minutes of May 6th with Joyce's corrections.
Any second on that?
Second.
All right, Bill made the motion, Joyce second. Bill, how do you vote on that?
Aye.
Joyce, how do you vote on that?
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote on that?
Aye.
Zach, how do you vote on that?
I missed that one, so I'm going to abstain from the minutes, even though I did watch the video.
Nicole, how do you vote?
Nicole Oben, aye.
And I, Andrew, will vote aye. So it's 5-0. All right, next up, I did not do a roll call, did I yet? Brandon, were you paying attention to me?
Yeah, I'm paying attention. A roll call for,
Voting members and associate members.
I believe you did that at the very beginning.
Okay, I just wanted to cover my tracks. It's a legal schmeagle thing. I have a note here.
Yeah, feel free to do it again, just to make sure. That's my recollection.
Okay, yeah, just for the record, full voting members tonight are Andrew Wolf, Bill Wentz, Joyce Smith, Zach Peliquin, Mike McGovern. An associate member, Nicole Oben, is also the co-host of tonight's meeting. She's pivotal tonight.
Yeah, in fact, I remember because Nicole corrected you to say that she was a non-voting member tonight at the beginning, right? Am I wrong?
Yes, no, that's correct, yes.
Perfect. Well, we get our I's dotted and our T's crossed. Next up on the agenda is a project update for 290 Putnam Hill Road. Brandon, I'm going to let you speak on this one first, please.
Okay. Let me see. I don't know, Nicole, in all the emails that flew around, did you happen to get any of the
I have all of the documents which I pulled from our website. I just need to know which one you'd like to show.
Okay, give me a second here, and I'll see if I can find the one I want to show. This is from 2018, 290 certificate compliance. The one that reads GPS at the beginning, 290 PHR Sutton.
They're not labeled like that. I have superimposed as-built 1 and 2, and then I have one that's an email from you. So I'm going to pull it up. You can just tell me if it's not the correct one. Just give me 1 second.
It gets to the point, but it's not the one that I want to show. And the one that I show, and I know that I sent this out, it's called GPS 290 PHR Sutton.
Okay, let me just give me a moment to find it in the email, and I will put it up on the screen.
I don't think I listed it like that. You might want to check the dates, what the ending dates when I posted it on the meeting
Nicole,
material.
I have it. Do you want it in your email or a text?
Can you send it to my Gmail account, please? And I'll pull it right up.
Be there in 2 seconds. Yeah, it's sent, so you should be getting it shortly.
Is that the correct one, Brandon?
That's the one. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. So Michael McGovern and I visited the site last Monday, so that would have been the 11th of May, to meet with the owners. And we noticed, first of all, that there had been recent cutting in the wetland area where the cutting was only supposed to happen twice a year between July and November. But that was the easy thing. And talking also about the junk cleanup and the fact that they still hadn't planted the trees and shrubs that they were supposed to plant near the road. And that was the easy stuff. And it was really meant to just be more of an educational visit, seeing as that they didn't know very much at all about the order conditions. But the longer that we were there, looking at the plan, the more we started to realize that things were kind of off. And specifically around the house and the very end of the driveway. All right, so what you're seeing in front of you is the 2019 aerial photograph with the approved site plan superimposed over it. In addition to that, you have some points in that green blob that represents the driveway, which was all picked up by GPS by my office. So the yellow dots, for the most part, represent the buffer zone flags. That's the A1 through A14 on either side of the driveway. You'll also see near point 813, it says pole 101-2. That's just one of the telephone poles leading to the house. And then on the near the more towards the bottom, you see the C series dots, which represent the wetland flags that my employee was able to find that remain. A lot of them are just gone at this point because they're getting old. So here's what we figured out. The house was turned 90 degrees compared to how it was supposed to be built. And look at the house and you can see a yellow dashed line. That's where the house was originally proposed. So when they turned it 90 degrees, they had to change the configuration of the driveway. The original driveway, which is shown as a dashed black line, went along the right side of the house. That was never built. Instead, what was built is this little hammerhead type looking thing at the end with a turnaround at the very end. And then we have the buffer zone sides on the south side of the driveway, which more or less go in a fairly straight line until you hit where the end of the driveway is, and then it kind of turns to the right by about, I don't know, about 30 degrees. So we were standing at the end of the driveway where the buffer zone signs should have been in a straight line, and we noticed that they bowed out. And I said, well, this doesn't look right. So we took the scale on the plan and we measured it, how far away that the buffer zone sign should have been from the corner of the house, and things didn't line up. So what this map does with the GPS points shows definitively that at the end of the driveway actually goes beyond the approved limit of disturbance line, which is that black dashed line with the little black points where the buffer zone signs were supposed to be put. And that buffer zone signs represented by A1, A2, and A3 are completely off from where they were supposed to be located. All right, the rest of them, A4 through A15, are pretty close to where they were supposed to be. In fact, A4 through A9, the ones on the south side of the driveway, were actually closer to the driveway than they needed to be. On the north side of the driveway, I'd say they're pretty close. the problem is that they didn't finish putting in all of the signs. There should have been more signs in the front of the house, but they weren't put in. The same thing on the back side of the house. They stopped where that A1 is when they should have kept on going. But it's obvious that the end of the driveway is way off whack. It's in an area where it should never have been built, and that somebody, I'm not going to speculate, but it sure seems pretty obvious that A1 and A2 and A3 buffer zone signs might have been put where they are to make it seem as if though everything was okay, when in reality it's not. So I think that we have a major violation of the order of conditions here with the driveway exceeding the approved limit of disturbance, and then somebody putting the signs way off whack, very close to the wetland line where they're not supposed to be. That's it.
Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate that. So before I go to the board, how would you suggest, as our conservation agent, how would you suggest we approach this? I know that the property has changed hands, and the people that purchased the property seem to not know, how this was supposed to be set up. They didn't know that the house was at a different angle than it was supposed to be. What do we as a board do?
I recommend that an as-built plan be created by a civil engineer, and to go along with it, that an enforcement order be issued that requires, that's the question. It's going to be tough to do restoration because they already got pavement in the ground, and the current owners are innocent bystanders in this. They're not the ones that did this. They're the ones who just bought it, thinking that everything was okay. But I know that the buffer zone signs have to be put back to where they were supposed to be, and that whatever work is being done has to comply to be within the confines of those buffer zone signs. So it's a bit of a tough one, but I'm thinking that an as-built plan is in order, and an enforcement order should also be issued.
Okay, yeah, and I tend to agree with Brandon on this. They're going to need to put those signs in where they're supposed to be. I mean, that was the agreed plan. That's what our board voted for, and that's my take on it. In the as-built, when anything's majorly different, they're going to have to do it, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to turn it over to the rest of the board. Bill Wentz, do you have any comments on this?
I'm in agreement with both you and Brandon on this.
Thank you, Bill. Joyce, do you have any comments on this?
I'm appalled that they didn't look at the order of conditions and they didn't follow the plans that were submitted. We could actually make them take the house down. I think they're the innocent bystanders, but what can we do to the people who actually did the work? We might want to get in touch with town council and get in touch with DEP. This is appalling.
The thing about it is that the violation goes with the property and whoever owns it at that time. It was the contractor, the person who actually submitted the notice of intent to begin with, that should have known everything that was required of them when building this place, is the one that's responsible for this. If the owners receive the enforcement order with whatever the restoration needs to be done, or even if you want to issue fines, they would have to enact legal proceedings against the person that they bought it from.
I'm just flabbergasted that they did this and just totally ignored what our order of conditions was.
I think I might have an idea at the end. I just want to get some more commentary, and then we can go over that, how we can rectify this in the future. Mike, do you have comments on this?
I do. because I was actually out at the site with Brandon. Like Brandon said, it started out as being an educational. It started out what they wanted to get the order of conditions closed out because they wanted to do some more work. We haven't discussed that, so that's what started this. That, and I did file a complaint saying that I saw they mowed the whole front lawn, and I thought it was they didn't understand. So I think we reached out to them just for me and Brandon to go out and, spend some time to educate them, maybe throw out the idea of some different options other than signs in the front yard. As a board, we've discussed some different choices, telling them they could come in front of the board and ask for some different ideas. Like Brandon said, the longer we were there, the more we said, wait a minute. Some of the things that just makes it unforgivable for me is in the written order of conditions, it says that if there's any change, no minor, so they came in front of the board, they filed. I think, like Joyce is saying, it's pretty substantial when you completely build something different than was approved. So that doesn't sit well with me. I do feel bad that some new owners came into play, but I don't think that we can just let it go on that excuse saying, oh, well, it transferred hands and we're just going to wash this under the rug. Not that that's what's being said, but I'm not wanting to throw the book and I'm not looking to fine them, but I think we need to make them follow through with the order of conditions that was written. Another thing that really bothers me, and it's come up before, not on this project, but we've tried to make the process simpler. When I say simpler, I mean we don't require an as-built, which we are putting trust into the engineer. I think one thing that hasn't been discussed, and I would like the letter from the engineer to be read into tonight's meeting, because our board was submitted a letter from a registered engineer, I believe, or a wetland scientist, that the project was substantially completed. And hey, if there was a few signs missing or somebody didn't finish cleaning up, I don't think we'd be talking right now. But we have a letter from somebody of profession that we're supposed to trust that I think needs to be held accountable in this as well. I don't know all the answers to it or how we go about it, but I believe that the as-built plan is going to fish out the start of what we're going to require to remedy the situation. But I think this needs to be taken pretty serious.
Do you have that letter, Nicole?
All right, while Nicole's pulling that up.
Yeah, do you want me to put it up on the screen?
That's all I have to say.
Zach, do you have any comments on this?
Not so much more than anyone has already said. I'm also with Joyce, and I am appalled that they just looks like they just ignored the plan they submitted to us. In addition, I'm wondering if there isn't some way we can't bring in the person that was responsible for this and to make them answer the questions rather than making the new homeowner who just bought the house and assumed everything was all right come in before us. I think like this is the responsibility of the contractor and the engineer that wrote the letter that this is in substantial compliance.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate that. Before we get to the letter, this is like, we all cheat a little bit and nobody's perfect and we all make mistakes, but for this much to be wrong with that property, I think is just kind of a slap in the face. At a former meeting with this builder, I'd asked him just to work with us and call us if there was changes, and I'll work with you. And I guess it went awry. So I think what we're going to do, as far as everybody's okay with it, is that whole Putnam Hill project. I'm going to send a letter to Gianni, which I believe is Ducky Properties LLC. Tell him we'll be there within the next 10 days to do a site inspection of all the projects. And if there's any wetlands flags, any of the stuff that he has to do, silt control, construction projects that are off, we're going to write him a fine for every. I feel like it's a slap in the face. And please do pull up that engineer's letter, because I'd love to see who that is.
Yeah, I can share it in just one moment. I do have something to say, though, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
When you buy a house, there are certain things that run with your title. If you bought a historic house, there's limitations on what you can do put on by the town. This order of conditions is the same thing. And yes, it's the attorney should be advising their client, but they were made aware already. So I feel like not only just looking at the as-built plan is a complete, the house was completely turned, which I can't even believe that was allowed. Or should we be notifying another board? I'm not sure. So now with that comment being said, I will share the letter.
And I'll do one better, Mr. Chairman, where we talk about changes. There's a condition, every single special order of conditions that states any changes to the site plan, however minor, must be requested in writing. And the object is to keep this kind of thing from happening, to keep the contractor in touch with the Conservation Commission, and specifically me, as they go along. And some contractors are really good with that, and things work out very good for them. But in this case, I got zero notification for this, and I was a bit bamboozled by this letter saying that everything was okay. So I at the very first time we spoke about this, because I feel it's going to come back up if someone goes back in the record, I said that I thought everything looked good, and I was wrong. But to go along with that, I was relying on this letter that a professional engineer who knows what they're doing, supposedly, said the same. So I didn't scrutinize it as closely as I really should have. And now it's ruined me going forward. I'm going to have to look a lot more closely at these letters and these, the as-bills, which we're not requiring. Anyway, I'll leave it there.
Nicole, would you mind scrolling the whole letter so we can see the entire thing? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to make it a little smaller so hopefully more of it can show up on the screen.
Good job, Nicole. So what can we do, Brandon? Can we tell, because of this, can we tell Summit Engineering they cannot file another filing with the Sutton Concom until this is rectified? Because this is completely mind-boggling to me.
That they can't submit to the Concom?
We will not accept a submission from them because of this until they rectify this.
I don't think you can do that legally.
I mean, this is crazy. I can't imagine that one of them walked on the site and said that this was okay. And this is mind-boggling to me. And my whole thing has been, if an engineer is going to stamp it, then they're not willing to lose their license. But this proves me wrong.
I'd like to point out, I am in the second paragraph, number 4, where it reads item 39C, it is the understanding of this office that an as-built plan will not be required by the commission based upon the input from the wetland consultant, as the site did not substantially deviate from the approved design plans. You can read this one of two different ways. It says wetland consultant, as the site did not substantially deviate, as in the wetland consultant said that the site didn't substantially deviate from the approved site plans. That's not how it should be read. I did not say that the site didn't deviate substantially from the site plans. I think that what they're saying is that the site didn't substantially deviate from the approved site plans. Therefore, based on input from me, an as-built plan wouldn't be necessary. So they're saying the site didn't substantially deviate from the site plans, therefore they're not providing an as-built. Follow me?
Through the chair, I want to say something.
Go ahead, Mike.
Just so everybody understands. So the reason that I really want to see an as-built plan is we can't really determine, Brandon was nice enough to go out and use his GPS equipment, but we can't lose track that a house was built much closer to the resource area. A driveway was installed, I don't want to say in the resource area, but extremely close. Signs were put in the wrong spot. So for us, it's not just an as-built plan to close it out. I believe that how are we going to handle the fact that he did work that wasn't approved to be done. And that has to be, an enforcement order has to be issued, I believe, without a fine. But with the knowledge of what we've discovered being out there that we know to be a fact, forget about the letter. The thing at hand is that we need an enforcement order sent out to these people. And I know, and I feel bad too. But the only way to this get rectified is an enforcement order. We need an as-built documenting what's been done so that this board can understand it needs to be presented in front of us by a professional. I believe that's our guidelines. And then from there, we make a determination of how we're going to handle, like what, it could be fines, it could be more plantings, work. Brandon, what's the words we use? When you do work inside the resource area, you have to mitigate. So
Yeah.
we haven't even started the discussion of the mitigation that has to take place for what the infractions that have occurred. Right? Am I saying it correctly, Brandon?
You are, and the question is, what legal vehicle do we use to have them do that? The enforcement order can be that vehicle.
Well, for now, I don't want, I as just myself, just an enforcement order that makes them document what's been done outside of the approved scope of work, which I believe we can ask for that to be done immediately and give them 30 days to comply, or that we have to write fines. I don't think we should be easygoing, and we can't use the excuse that it got sold in these poor homeowners, because this will continue to go on. It will be from far the last time that we deal with this as a board. I spent time with these homeowners. They were never even educated. We spend all this time and we create bylaws to try to keep Sutton beautiful. I know I spend time on this board I like the open space. I like the wet meadow laws. I like a lot of things that make Sutton great. And if we lose track of that and we let projects like this just because we feel bad for somebody, I think this needs to be fished out. I really feel strongly, as-built plan, we need to have an enforcement order that makes that happen. And I don't think there's fines that should be at this point, but I think an enforcement order to know how we're going to rectify the work that took place outside the approved jurisdiction. And I don't say anymore because that's it. That's a fact.
Through the chair, I think we should also, if appropriate, speak with town council and see what should be done on Sutton Engineering, because Sutton Engineering stamped it, signed it, and put on their letterhead. And they made it a professional error on this.
I agree with Bill.
And I think that's part of the problem as well. So you got both the contractor who did wrong and the engineer who did wrong in this.
I would like to second like what Bill and Mike are saying about, I think we should talk to the town council and look at both the engineer and the contractor. Because I think this is appalling and there's absolutely no reason that this should have been done.
Through the chair, I wonder if when the building inspector goes out, he notices if the house has been changed 90 degrees and things like that. Somebody should have caught this beforehand. And I think we need to go to town council, see what recourse there is to come back on the builders that did this. They completely ignored any of the qualifications in the order of conditions, and it's just unacceptable.
Thank you, Joyce. And I do agree with you on this. I will get in touch through Wanda tomorrow with town council on this, and we'll go through what we can do.
Through the chair, maybe we should send a slip to all of the departments.
Sorry, one at a time. Bill, go ahead.
Maybe we should be notifying all of the departments, planning board as well as building, of this error, just so everyone in the town, there's no surprise with the departments.
I'd also notify the Board of Health regarding the septic system, just to make sure everything's in line of where it's supposed to be.
Andy, through the chair, Mike. So are we all in agreement that we're going to do an enforcement order? That we're going to give them X amount of time to come up with it? Because so there's an open order of conditions right now. So we have to stop them being able to do any work, hypothetically, and that cease and desist with a you know what I said, an enforcement order and requesting them to come in with an as-built plan of what's done in the project. Is what I hope becomes when do we have to vote on that? Is that something we'd make a motion?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be a motion.
So
Before
is
we get-
everybody done discussing? Because then I'll make that motion.
Before we get to that, Mike,
Yep.
if we have, how many houses were put in down there? 3 or 4?
There were 4 houses on that side of the road. It was all part of one big lot at one time.
Are
So
they all in open order of conditions?
they all are in open order conditions.
As far as I'm concerned, they all need to be inspected because if they're not too far in the process, we can maybe catch some of these errors and stop them before they happen.
Just so
If we-
happens I have inspected those other 3 houses in the last
Okay.
couple of weeks.
So we're done. Okay, so we can talk about that after. Very good. All right.
Well, no, Andy, not to cut up. Andy, you just brought up, how do we know the houses are in the right spot? Has there been as-built plans of the foundation submitted to the building department? Well, I mean, if we're gonna ask and then say everything's okay, he's already proven that, I mean, I think we'd have to verbally ask him and have him say, did you follow the plan? Is the house, have you followed your order of conditions? Is there anything on your other sites that we should know about that is been a minor change? So we can document it moving forward. I don't think that's too much to ask with what's going on this lot. And then at least we would have him make a statement saying that he's followed the plan. And then when it comes time, we're probably gonna have to ask for as-built on all those projects down there. And if he didn't tell us the truth, that was his chance to come clean and just rectify everything at once, if there is any other issues there.
Through the chair, I believe there may have been an issue with the replication area there. They kind of scooped it out and then he just pushed the same dirt back in as it appeared to me. And I'm not sure they did any plantings or anything that they were supposed to do. So that may have been an issue way back too. So I agree that there should be as-built, and then maybe we find out through the as-built what actually has occurred, and then we go from there.
I think we need to find a violation before we order an as-built. That's my only, was why I think Brandon has a little bit more on this. So why don't we, go ahead, Nicole, it'll be your last comment on this.
No, it's not a comment. I'm just wondering, do we have to read this letter in for the record, or are we good with what we've done? Just
I will have a copy.
It was
town council. I'm just not sure.
It was on the screen for long enough. I don't think we need to read it in.
All right, thank you.
Did we get just all of the letter? Or there's not like a second page or anything?
It is 2 pages. If you just let me put it up briefly, that way we get everything on record.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have 4 pages. There's 2 pages with pictures. I will have it with the minutes when the minutes are approved.
Thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Nicole.
So I think we'll take on that. We'll take a motion for the enforcement order for 290. And that, I know we can fine them. I would not recommend a fine at this time, seeing as though it's not the contractor that built the house.
Through the chair, an enforcement order, the first day you issue it, it's a warning. The second day, it's a $200 fine. The third day and subsequent days, it's a $300 a day fine.
We could talk about that after, but let's issue this one without a fine. I'll take a motion.
So I'll make a motion to issue enforcement order on, what was the address? I just don't have paperwork in front of me.
290 Putnam.
It's 290 Putnam Hill Road. And in the enforcement order, we're requiring an as-built due to the findings from Brandon's GPS visit and documentation of the location of the home and driveway and other inconsistencies, and the letter from the engineer and all the inconsistencies with his letter.
I'll second that. Bill Wentz.
Mike made the motion, Bill made the second. Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joyce, how do you vote? You have to unmute, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
And we gave him 30 days in that motion. Did I say 30 days to come up with the as-built plan so that there's a deadline? I know we talk about enforcement, but enforcement is easier when there's a deadline that hasn't been met. So that if this does get to the point where we have to do enforcement by fine, I think there should be a mention of 30 days that they have, or at least appear in front of our board sooner than 30 days to explain, that they've hired an engineer to do the as-built plan. I just wanted that in there as well. So aye.
All right, Bill, why don't we revote that with the word adding of the word 30 days?
Sorry about that, you guys. I just think it's important.
Bill Wentz, aye.
Joyce, how do you vote? You have to unmute.
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote? Oh, you already voted aye. Zach, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well on that. So that's 5-0. All right, Brandon, we're going to talk a little bit more about your findings on Putnam Hill Road after this. I just want to get through these other enforcement orders.
Okay.
290 Putnam, I'm sorry, 290 Putnam Hill, 211 Boston Road was brought to our attention by, I believe, by a board member. They had put a roadway in on the edge of wetland to access the rear. And I believe the explanation was they need to access to put the septic system in, but I think there's more going on than that. Brandon, do you care to discuss?
Yes, sure. It was early last week, I think on the same day we went to Putnam Hill Road. We went to 211, and by the way, I'm the one who noticed it first on a drive-by as I'm going down Boston Road. This site had an water resource area delineation back in 2018, so I'd already been to the site. The wetlands had already been delineated. The blue flags associated with the delineation was still up. So there's a new owner, and the new owner is a landscaper, has his own landscaping company out of Westboro. And his explanation was that, yes, he needed to scratch out a road to get to the area behind the house. His story kept on shifting, honestly. But the facts are that he did vegetative clearing and earthwork within 100 feet of a bordering vegetated wetland. Nicole, are you there?
I'm here. I don't have anything for this property.
Okay, I sent something out. I would like to send to you.
Okay, just give me a moment and I'll check back on my email.
Okay. Nicole Aubin, I'm going to send you something real quick. It's in cyberspace. What I did is I overlaid the ANRAD plan from 2018 over the 2019 aerial photo. And what I did is you'll see in brown my estimation of where the work happened. It looks to me like, there we go.
Is this the correct one, Brandon?
That's the correct one.
Okay, great.
So you see the black line with all the little numbers, they're really small, but that's the wetland boundary. And then that where it says W100, that's the 100-foot buffer zone. So he scratched in a road between the wetland line and that tree near the road. And then has an area behind the tree and behind the house, and there's a shed there too. It's not as easily seen, but that's more or less the area that was altered. So Mike and I visited him, and we told him that he needed to put up erosion controls, which he did, and I think he did a pretty good job of it. And they also needed to hire a land surveyor to show the outline of the areas that he did the work, and also do some topography work, because it's not just the clearing and scratching out an area for what looked like a foundation, but where the septic system is close to the house, he had brought some fill in on a slope. So it's a little more than just clearing and scratching out a driveway. So we said, you got to do some topography work and associated with this. And then once that's done, you're going to submit that to the Conservation Commission. He called me yesterday to say that he had hired the surveyor, and it's probably going to be about a month before he gets a final product. So that's the timeline. But with this one, it's very clear that this work shouldn't have been done, and the commission can move forward however you want. I would recommend an enforcement order, and you could, require a site plan. You can require a notice of intent if you wanted to. You could require total restoration. It's your call.
And then what's that square on the back represent? I'm sorry.
That's an area that looks like it was cleared out for a foundation. Again, that's speculation, but I've seen holes made up for foundations before, and that's what it sure as heck looked like.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. So,
Through the chair, have we spoke to any of the departments to see if any building permits were issued or Board of Health for this property?
I have not.
I think if Wanda could maybe reach out in the next couple of days, I think it'd be good to know on that.
Yeah, I think that in the meantime, our best bet is to send out an enforcement order. And they're going to have to vacate that road because it wouldn't pass anyway. It's inside the 25-foot no touch. It violates everything that we've done.
Right. Not only that, but they have other means of access, which also means it wouldn't pass the impact avoidance and minimization test.
Bill wants to make a motion to issue an enforcement order for 211 Boston Road. You think it is?
Correct.
I'll second it.
Yeah, Bill made the motion. Zach seconded. Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
Do you have the specifications of the enforcement order? What do you want them to do?
An NOI. Mike, I did the site visit with Brandon. I just want to say a few things. I didn't get a chance to speak. I just want to go on record. He was very talkative. I did the site visit after the fact. He did clean it up. He's got his fence up, but it's very clearly more like a road going through there. So my advice would be that we do the enforcement order, and I think he needs to file an NOI, not just a RDA. There's quite a bit of disturbance there that leads to a foundation. And there's more work than just this roadway. He worked on the septic, the shed. So I would make a suggestion that if we're going to outline, it's an NOI filing. I have no more.
Is that shed and the other work inside the buffer zone, in your opinion?
Brandon, I believe we did. We stepped it off, or we paced it off we did a few things that day, different sites. I don't know if we actually took out a tape, but
There was a tape. Yes, there was a tape, and he did pull it and went all the way up to where the shed and the fill associated with the septic system was. But then he said, we probably shouldn't be doing this. This is really the job of a land surveyor, and he needs to hire a land surveyor to locate where all this disturbance happened. which is, I think, is the proper thing to do.
Okay, so,
Can I make a comment, please?
yes, go ahead, Joyce.
If he has fill that he's added illegally, it's so much a foot for every day it stays there. I think he needs to file an NOI, but he needs a cease and desist also, and maybe a ticket if he's already done all this work. If we don't enforce things, people are going to keep doing this and try to get away with things.
Through the chair, Joyce, I think, did you explain earlier that at first it's a warning? So I do agree, an enforcement order with a ticket is a fine appropriate for the?
Well, in the past, we have issued the tickets with a warning, and then it's kind of up to us when we go to the next step. But it is, every day it continues. It's a warning first, and then it's the second day you give them the ticket. It would be a $200 fine, and then after that, it's $300 for every day. But
So just something we as a board should understand when we get these complaints and we go out and there's violation and Brandon's involved. Have we ever put any thought into how we're going to pay Brandon when there hasn't been an NOI for all this time for these things that happen? Can that be done with, if we were to find somebody and it had a purpose, let's say, that it covered the cost of what they did, the crime had a cost to it. It cost us, the town. That would make it easier for me to.
We cannot just pick a number. It's
No, I
according
agree.
to the general bylaws. And
So, but what can we do with the money? No, I
the
guess.
money goes into our account
That we can use to pay Brandon?
that we can use, yes.
And the reason I say it that way is spending time with Brandon, he's not charging for a lot of these things that he does. And Joyce, you've said it numerous times over the years because you've been on longer than us. But just so the rest of the board knows, I think that when we discover things like this and if we're going to issue a fine, it would be to use, not just to fine somebody, it's to cover the costs associated with what they did. Just so it makes me feel better to know that I'm just not fining somebody just to fine them, that there's a reason for it. And the money's used to deal with his problem, not just going into some general fund for the
It's
town.
in the bylaw and this goes by the general bylaw. That's why we took these fees out of the wetlands bylaw and it goes into we took them out and it's the general town bylaw. So it's the same for every board. It's the warning and then $200 a day and then $300 a day. So it's not just ours.
So Joyce, maybe maybe you can help then. So how do we as a board generate the money to cover the costs associated with things outside of NOIs and RDAs?
Well, it's the fees
For our consultant.
for so much money for building a new house, and those we passed there last year and we put in. But as far as the tickets go, it's the fees go into that same account that we can use.
So just like I'm thinking, the ticket, so if we were to fine, the fine would go to cover the costs because it would go into the general account.
You can't say that it's going to cover the costs. You have to do it by the rules and regulations. We can't say, okay, it costs $1,500, so we're going to fine you $1,500. It has to be per day with this fine. So we can't just pick a number.
Right, but the commission does have the discretion as to when that fining period ends.
Yes, like before the $1,400 in fines we collected from a case a few years ago. When he came in and filed the NOI and came in and tried to make amends and so forth, we suspended the fines, but if he didn't do the work, they were going to be retroactive.
That's a good use of them.
Excellent. All right.
I like that idea.
All right, so we're going to send this enforcement order without a fine, just a warning, and then we can fine thereafter.
Well, it has to be a ticket if it's the warning. You can send the enforcement order separate from the ticket. It doesn't have to include the ticket, but if you include the ticket, day one would be the warning.
Why don't we include the ticket on this one?
We can do a 1-day fine.
Well, you have to do the warning first.
Oh, okay. That's what I asked
There's already
earlier.
been more than, there's
Yeah.
already been at least 2 weeks that this has been in place. And we discovered it, I discovered on May 11th when I was starting to drive back to my office after leaving 290 Putnam Hill Road. So the day of discovery is May 11th. So you have all those days to work with if you want to.
This is in the office. I got it from Wanda today. It has all the rules and regulations for the wetlands enforcement. So it's been in the office. And so I would suggest that if you want to read it, you can read it, and it will spell out what you can and can't do in some of these things. I had bought this copy a year or so ago, and so it's now in the office. I will return it there tomorrow, but I got it from Wanda today so I could show it.
So Andy, through the chair?
Yes, sir.
So then let's give him a timeline that he has to file his NOI so that there's some kind of accountability. And just like the last case, if it's not done by a certain period, then that's when we would implement a fine. Because we're going to give him a warning. We're going to issue a cease and desist, ask him to file an NOI, and we're going to give him 30 days. Doesn't mean he has to have it done, but at least he has to appear in front of our board and give us some kind of an explanation of what he's doing so that there's something active making him follow through with this. How does that sound?
I like Mike's idea. Just me personally, I think that's a good plan.
Sounds good to me. All right, Bill, can you re-motion that?
Gonna withdraw the other motion and make a motion to issue an enforcement order with a fine requiring him to file a notice of intent and cease and desist all continuing work for 211 Boston Road.
Did
I
you
miss
fine
anything?
or issue a ticket?
And issue a ticket.
Well, you said a fine. I thought we weren't going to do a fine first. We're going to issue the ticket for the warning first.
That's what
It's
Joyce
tricky,
said.
Bill. We're all getting used to it. I think she said it. Yep.
Yeah, just to reiterate, we're going to issue an EO, a ticket that's just a warning, and a cease and desist letter to 211 Boston Road. And we'll take a
I'll
second
second it.
With a requirement that an NOI be submitted in 30 days.
with a requirement. Yeah.
Somebody else has got to
No,
state that because Andy can't make the motion.
I didn't make the motion. I reiterated it.
Okay.
But I can't, someone else has to say NOI in 30 days.
To
NOI.
include it NOI within 30 days.
All right, I'll take the second on that.
I'll second it.
All right, so Bill made the motion, Zach seconded. Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joyce, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Aye.
Zach, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I vote aye on that. Next up is 78 West Millbury Road. That came in as a complaint from one of the commissioners. There was multiple humongo supersized pine trees being taken down. What was the final count that we got that were in our jurisdiction?
3 pine trees, and there were an unknown number of rhododendrons that were taken down within 100 feet as well. I'll note that the tree cutter said that he was going to be replacing them. The rhododendron, that was already part of the plan, but that's it.
Okay, it seemed to be just a miscommunication on this project, and it's good that we picked it off. We can get them replaced. We are missing a large canopy, as Mike had pointed out. Mike and I went to the site because the trees were so big that was shading that wetland. So this might be a instance where we might do 2 small trees for the one that they took down, you know, for everyone that they took down. But it's not a malicious thing. So I think we could just send out an enforcement order with nothing else, just stating what we're looking for, and they can file an RDA for replacement.
Can I make a comment, please?
Yeah.
I talked to her on the phone, and you asked me to call Brigetta. They had lost their power for 3 days because of the trees coming down on their power lines. So that's why they were cutting them. They maybe went a little bit farther than they were supposed to, but they had lost their power for 3 days. The rhododendron bushes she had, I guess, taken up so that she could replace them. She belongs to a rare rhododendron club at Tower Hill. And so these are rare rhododendrons. So she asked that she could put them back as soon as possible so they didn't die. So I talked to Andy on the phone, and he said that she could put the rhododendrons back so that they did not die. So that's the story on the rhododendrons.
Bill, do you have any further comments or questions on this?
Just,
I do not have anything.
I have one question. Why did they pull up the rhododendron if they're going to replace them with the same
No,
rhododendron?
she's just going to replant the same ones.
No, yeah, that's why I was asking. Why did they pull them up in the first place, or just to move them?
So they didn't get damaged, I guess, when they cut the trees.
Okay, okay, that makes sense now. Thank you, Joyce.
All right, Joyce, any other comments on this?
I
Hearing
don't
none.
know that it needs to be an enforcement order. It could just be a letter saying that they need to file after the fact.
Mike, any comments on this?
No, we've covered everything.
All right, it's up to you guys. You want to just do a letter, or do you want to do an enforcement order? It's up to you.
I think a letter in this case is all right. Just my opinion.
Just what's in the letter refer to a 30-day to reply to our board. As long as there's
Yeah.
some kind of a timeline.
All
I'm
right,
fine with just a letter.
There's 3 members for a letter, so let's get a motion for a letter.
All right, I'll make a motion to send a letter requiring a response within 30 days.
I will second.
All right, Zach made the motion, Bill second. Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joyce, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Aye.
Zach, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Andrew DeWolf, I vote aye. So just a letter on that one for response and an RDA. All right, next up is 125 Singletary Ave. This is the same builder type project, same situation we had at 290 Putnam Hill Road. There's trees taken down in the buffer zone that weren't permitted. I'm gonna leave, this was also, we got a letter that was gonna be completed in substantial compliance, and it wasn't. I'll leave this up to the rest of the board to make any more comments on this. Brandon, do you have comments on this?
No, other than I looked up the site plan because there's an order of conditions associated with 125 Singletary Ave recently, and none of the trees along the roadway here were slated to come down or were allowed to be cut, and they were cut without permission from the Conservation Commission, and they're within 100 feet of the wetland resource area, so there's no excuse.
I want to add to Brandon's comment that we actually reached out to Matt Stencil to confirm the town did not take the trees down, and he stated he did not because it's a state road. So unless we can be told that the state took these trees down, I am making a motion to issue an enforcement order, cease and desist, and a warning ticket with a fine for this property, which is what number Singletary?
125.
25 Singletary.
I'll second it.
All right, Bill made the motion, Mike McGovern seconded. We're not gonna do a fine on this, we're gonna do a warning, correct?
We have to start with a warning, I believe. We're gonna issue a ticket as a warning.
Okay.
And once
So-
again, let's give them 30 days to respond, and
And the letter and the ticket will be sent along with the letter then, instead of an enforcement order.
Sounds good.
just real quick, Brandon, when you were there with the, how about erosion controls going? I see the roads like freshly being worked on.
I don't think that the work was so significant that it requires erosion controls.
Okay.
All right, very good. So we got we have that motion, and who seconded it? I'm sorry.
I believe I did.
All right, Mike seconded. So Bill made the motion, Mike second. Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joyce, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Aye.
Zach, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I, Andrew Wolf, vote aye. So to reiterate, we're going to send out a letter and a warning ticket. Next up is,
Wait, Andy,
yes.
did we include we're not including a cease and desist or in that one, right?
Was there, yeah, and a cease and desist, you're right, and a cease and desist.
Okay.
Next up is Harback Road, which I believe.
Mr. Chair, I need to recuse myself from this discussion.
Yes, ma'am, as a resident. Next up is Harback Road, which I believe the work is done on number 26, but the residence is number 25. There's a ton of debris pushed into a pond, like a ton. So I'm going to make the recommendation that they get a enforcement order and a warning ticket on this, and come up with a plan to remove it, because there's everything from trees to wheelbarrows that got pushed in there.
I also want to make a comment through the chair that I took a ride by there twice now, and if it was just trees and branches, I think we could overlook it a little bit, being a natural thing, but there were large chunks of cement that were only possibly moved by a form of machine or equipment.
Brandon, do you have any comments on this one?
No.
All right, Bill, any other comments?
No.
Joyce, any comments on this?
I'd like to ride by what number, Harback?
25, White House.
Okay, no comments.
Mike, any comments?
I haven't had a chance to see it, but it sounds pretty bad, so I'm in favor of an enforcement order. And a fine, you know, a ticket.
Zach, any comments on this?
No additional comments.
All right, so Bill, we'll take a motion with a cease and desist, a ticket, and an EO.
Bill wants making a motion to issue a cease and desist, a warning ticket, and an enforcement order for, I believe it's 25 and 26 Harback Road. I'd like to see personally all the work removed within 30 days. And my motion is going to ask a question as well. Can we allow them to pull everything out right away?
I think they need to come and explain.
Do you think that's really even necessary? Seeing how blatant it is?
Well, no, not to explain, but just to come before us and.
I'd personally like to see them come back after it's cleaned out, so within 30 days.
All right, if they can do it in 30 days, that would be good.
Okay, so enforcement order with a restoration plan or action being, do you want a restoration plan or you just want them to get it out?
I don't think there's anything really to restore, just get the crap out.
Okay.
And Andy, just on one comment, I think we should make them remove anything they put in, not just the concrete and the wheelbarrows, but everything.
Yeah, agreed. So Bill made the motion, I'll take a second.
I'll second it.
Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joyce, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Aye.
Zach, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I, Andrew DeWolf, vote aye. All right, next one is, can't believe this. I've never seen this. That's all for my 3 years on conservation. Another complaint, which came in from a board member, 10 Lincoln Road, which they were on. It's the same owners that came in earlier with 14 Lincoln Road. Apparently they drilled the well. They hooked up a generator to the well pump to clear the well with no conservation consultant pre-construction meeting, and the not correct erosion controls, and it was spewing into the wetland. So this might be the same situation, but I'll leave it up to the board how you want to go with it. Brandon, do you have any comment on this?
I'll comment that the contractor called me and has apologized profusely. Not that it, it makes everything better. But I know that today or yesterday, I forget, he replaced the vinyl mesh straw wattles with the correct straw wattles. And he also was relying on Norman Hill's assessment because we require the engineer to inspect the erosion controls before the pre-construction meeting. And we got a written notification from Norman Hill that everything looked great. So the contractor said that he was relying on what Norman Hill said. And obviously that was wrong. And also that he was looking at the plan approved by the Board of Health and not the conservation plan. And that since then he's now has his ducks in a row. And I'm also meeting him tomorrow afternoon, early afternoon, for the pre-construction meeting, which should have already been done.
I'd like to make a comment here and give you some background. I went to the dump on last Friday, and when I came back out on Lincoln Road, I noticed that the wrong erosion controls were there. So I drove in and looked, and I left a message for Wanda, and I called Brandon to notify Norman Hill. And then Brandon called me yesterday and said, Norman said to go down and inspect them. And I said, gee, you mean he's changed them already? But I went down and found that they weren't changed. They were the wrong size. They had the mesh. And then I saw the generator with the water going, and took pictures and noticed that it had overtopped everything and was going into the wetlands. So then I went and got Bill, and we both observed the same thing. So once again, you try to do your best, and then they somehow mess things up.
Make a note through the chair. I drove by today and to confirm, Brandon, the wattles are changed out to the correct ones. I did not go on the property to see if the generator was running. But I think this is a case where we get another letter from an engineer, and I'm wondering if there's an enforcement order or something we can do against the engineer, because quite frankly, I'm getting sick of this happening with these engineers.
All right, so I'll, which way do you want to go with it? Do you want to do an EO or a ticket, or how do you want to do it? Right, or all three, or cease and desist? I mean, that would be rough. They're putting in a house. I'll take your motion on it.
So before we make a motion, just a suggestion. Brandon, you said you're doing a site visit Thursday?
Yeah, tomorrow around 1 o'clock or so.
So I think we give him a stern warning. We got a site visit happening tomorrow. He did respond to our phone call. He has an order of conditions to do the work, so he wasn't totally illegal. He wasn't blatant. So Brandon, I just would definitely give him a heed of warning when you meet with him tomorrow that he's already got a strike against him. So that if he was to not follow that order of condition, we probably are going to be more upset with him because it'll be his second offense. I think is a better way to handle this one if everyone does.
Yeah, sorry, through the chair. What would be good to hand to him at the same time we give him the stern warning when I meet him tomorrow? A warning ticket. That'd get his attention.
A warning ticket is a good first step.
Yeah,
I'll agree.
I'll agree to the warning ticket as well, but what do we do about Mr. Hill's letter that said it was substantially in compliance? And that's what the contractor went off of.
I did not see that letter.
It was an email. Well, most of the engineers write an actual letter on letterhead. We just got an email, like a 3-line email from Norman, which is really, that's a written notification, so you can't say that's the wrong thing to do. But the point is that Norman said that everything was done properly when it wasn't. So you can't find Norman. You can't send an enforcement order against Norman. This is more of him losing face and reputation in town.
And sometimes
the
that's
chair?
worse, right?
I agree, Bill. Sometimes it's worse.
All right, any other comments on this? Zach, do you have any comments on this?
No, I have no additional comments. I think a warning, whatever we're calling it, a warning ticket would be a good thing to hand to him. I think it will make him pay more attention to the order of conditions. Going
Nicole, any
forward.
comments on this? Joyce, any other comments?
I'm muted. Okay. Who's gonna fill out all these tickets by tomorrow? Andy, you're gonna go fill out all these tickets by tomorrow?
Yeah, I guess I'll have to go to the town hall. Does it have to be the chair or can somebody else do it?
I can help if anybody needs help.
Yeah, somebody else can do it, but I think it has to be signed by somebody on the commission.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily has to be the chairman, just somebody on the commission.
Yeah, you going to the town hall tomorrow, Joyce, or no?
I can. Well, I can't get in, but Wanda can bring them out, but.
Yeah, whichever. I can do it too. I'm home. I mean, I got nothing going on at work, so I'm home by 1 o'clock, so whichever.
Well, that's good timing. Sorry, Wanda says she's not in until noon.
Okay, so I'll swing by the town hall on my way home. I'll call Wanda. I'll meet her outside. We can wear our face masks and talk to each other.
I'm happy to help in any way too. Just keep me posted.
All right, so we need a motion on this one.
Make a motion to issue a warning ticket for, is it 10 Lincoln Road?
Yes.
I'll take a
I'll
second.
second it, Zach.
All right, so Bill made the motion, Zach second. Phil, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joyce, how do you vote? Zach, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I, Andrew, will vote aye on this. Last thing I wanted to go through, I think that's it on our agenda here, isn't it? Project update posted, yep. Electronic, yep. Brandon, what else did you find at that 290 Putnam Hill Road complex? What are we talking?
Well, it all started out with the fact that they were mowing the wetland area, which was a wet meadow farmed before the house was built. And so they weren't complying with their conditions that the wet meadow can only be cut twice a year between July 15 and October 15. So that started out with that. And also the fact that they didn't do their plantings near the road like they were supposed to. That they were clearing junk at areas that they weren't supposed to be clearing. And then from there, we found the fact that the driveway was built outside of the approved permanent limited disturbance, and that the buffer zone signs of the last three were not put in the correct location. Also, the well was built in the area outside of the approved limit of disturbance, and there are still many missing buffer zone signs. So there's a big list. I can email it to you if you want. It makes it easier.
No, I think the list is big enough. I think that tomorrow we send them out a letter and tell them we're going to be there within 10 days to inspect all the properties on Putnam Hill Road, and whatever's not in compliance is going to be ticketed.
Through the chair, I went to Manchog Road, Mr. Godier's property to confirm the bushes were planted with the trees were taken down. I don't know if we need a sign off on that, but Wanda had sent an email out on that.
Wanda, what did you want us to do on that? I'm sorry. My brain's spinning now.
Which one are you talking about now?
Raymond Godier's property, Manchog Road. I don't know the number. Something and a half.
124 and a half. it's 124.5. Without the information in front of me, I'm not sure what was going on there. Does anybody remember what the email was?
I had to confirm
I
that
could pull it up.
trees and shrubs were planted, or shrubs were planted,
Oh,
and they
yeah,
were.
something like that. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have the file with me.
Yeah, it looks like it was just an RDA, just pulled it up. We just asked them for an after-the-fact inspection or a picture of that they did what they were supposed to do, so we can just call his all set, I believe.
Okay.
Also, the property next to it, and I don't know the address, was approved about a year ago. and it's just-
124.
Is that 124? That erosion controls are getting a little rough. Not the end of the world, but I don't know if we want to do a follow-up. Nothing's happened with that. It's just an open lot, which could pose a problem with washout and so on eventually.
Yeah, would you want to reach out to him? I could probably find an email. You want me to send him an email and see what's going on?
I don't think it's a bad idea just before we have some monsoon or something and dirt and stuff gets into the lake.
All right, I'll see if I can figure out, I got a whole list of notes now. An email for them and we'll try to send it out. All right, and I believe that concludes everything we have. Wanda, just call me tomorrow when you're heading into work or when you get the letters done and I'll come in and sign, or if I'm not available, maybe Joyce or Bill or Mike or somebody will be around and we'll get them done. And if anything else needs to be helped with, just let us know.
I'm
Okay,
currently not
I'll come
working,
in
so
as
I can
early
run
as
up
I
as
can.
well.
I'll come in as early as I can and get started on this. And these will be the things I do first.
Perfect, thank you.
I'll let you know.
Okay, I think with that, unless anybody else has anything, which I'll go around and ask, after that, we'll take a motion to adjourn. Bill, do you have anything else?
I do not. Good meeting.
Joyce, do you have anything else?
Just that I was at the Waters Farm meeting Monday night, and basically everything is on hold because we're supposed to get a couple of grants, and until the money is in their hands, they're not doing anything.
Jack, do you have anything else?
I have nothing else.
Mike, do you have anything?
I do not.
That's a nice light fixture you got. Nicole, do you have anything?
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Brandon, do you have anything?
For the next meeting, we should probably continue our talks about how RDA should be handled in the future. I think you still have an interest in that.
I think we do have an interest in it, but this was a 4-item meeting and it went for a while, so maybe we can hold off on that a couple meetings until we can see each other face to face.
Okay. And there's also cease and desist form you asked me to fill out that I think could probably be useful. Do you want to bring that up in a future meeting?
No, you know what, real quick, why don't we talk about it now, because we probably should send that form out with the stuff we just talked about.
Do we want to have any discussion? Because I'll make a motion if we don't. I read it. I don't know if everybody got a chance to.
Bill, did you get a chance to read through it?
Yes, I did.
Any comments?
No, good job. Looks good.
Joyce, did you get a chance to read through it?
Yes, I had wanted, because I don't have the email anymore, so I wanted, did a copy and I read through it. So yeah, I agree. It's pretty good.
Zach, do you have any, did you read through it? Any comments?
I read through it. I like it. I think it's a good format.
Nicole, any comments? Did you read through it?
I read through it. I think it's fine. Do we have to have it approved by town council? That was the only question.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just making us verbal cease and desist official in my eyes. I know that the ticket
Okay.
would back it up, but.
No, I think it's fine. Good job, Brandon.
All right.
Yeah, good job, Brendan.
Yeah, so we'll send that out with the ones we said we were going to send the cease and desist out. Wanda, do you have anything that you'd like to add to tonight's meeting?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, your next meeting, you've already got 8 filings on it, just to let you all know. So hopefully they'll be short and sweet, but.
Let's hope. All right, I'll take a
Motion to adjourn.
to adjourn. We have a motion from Zach,
I'll second it. That was quick, Zach. Good job.
and it's
You're
and a
welcome.
second, and a second from Bill. Bill, how do you vote?
Definitely aye.
Joyce, how do you vote?
Aye.
Zach, how do you vote?
Absolutely aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. And everybody have a good night and stay safe.
You too. Good night.
Yeah,
Good night, everybody.
Andy, I'll call you when